Welcome to Decide to Transform. You made it to level 2, deeper questions leading to deeper answers. I'm Tomas Garza, and I'm here to help you decide to transform. I'll be setting the pace for the process to support your unfolding. Learn and commit to a practice that brings simplicity and awareness of what is ready to be released. Join me now and allow the experience of a deeper sense of love. Welcome everyone all over the world to Decide to Transform. I am your host, Tomas Garza, and we've got a fantastic show on tap for today. And before I tell you all about that, I just want to invite you to get comfortable today. And wherever you are, wherever you're tuning in from, I thank you so much for listening. I know for a fact that we have people tuning in from Europe, South America, Asia, Australia right now live. Welcome, everyone, and thank you so much. I'm broadcasting here from Phoenix, Arizona, where it's sunny and it's warm, and it's going to be even warmer. In fact, we're looking at 100 degrees Fahrenheit on Sunday. That's about 38 Celsius. So it's getting warm around here. It's sunny, it's beautiful, and get comfortable today because I'm going to change the show up a little bit. And you might want to grab some popcorn, so to speak, or a cup of tea, and whatever you want to do. I'm going to entertain you a little bit today, and it's going to be very, very fun because I'm going to get really, really personal. For the past few weeks, I've been sharing some teachings. Last week, we were talking about healing the mind and healing being of the mind, and then the body may follow suit along with that, talking about going to work on yourselves on a deep level. And this week and next week, I want to share some very personal stories. I really have been inspired to get dirty and share what has not worked for me in my own personal growth, in my own spiritual development. All of the transformation that I've been through is the result of a number of mishaps and mistakes. So I want to share some of that during the next couple of weeks. The title of today's show is Out of My Head, A Stubborn Person's Road to Spiritual Recovery. Now I'll explain more what I mean about spiritual recovery, but that stubborn person is me. The stubborn person is me, and it's very easy when we look at people that publish books related to spirituality, when we look at people that have Facebook Lives with a big worldwide reach, and they're talking about personal growth and spirituality, when people have radio shows like I do on OMTimes Radio, where we're talking about personal growth and spirituality, it's very easy to look at somebody in this situation and think they've got it all together. Right? Look at them, they've got it all together. Well, no, we did not always have it all together, and it's always a process. And that's one thing that I think any authentic treatment of spirituality needs to take into account and really needs to get into and cover. And that is all of the painful work and the misadventures, the mishaps and the frustrations that go along with any kind of real deep process. Because it's messy. And as human beings, we get ourselves into all kinds of messes, and the process takes time. There are moments of grief. There absolutely are. There are moments of pain and frustration. So in wishing to share some of my own with you today and next week, what I'm hoping is that wherever you're tuning in from and whatever your state of life is, maybe you're in a state of major transition in work, in a relationship, and maybe you are not, but I hope that you find something of value here, because I always feel as a teacher that we simply have a responsibility. I consider it my personal responsibility to tell my own story and to get out my experience. That is the number one reason why I started this radio show, is to share my experience with people, knowing that there are many people worldwide that would benefit and that will benefit and that are benefiting from my sharing. Whatever line of work you're in, whatever your relationship status or family status is, if you have something that you want to get out, a teaching, a story, information, your experience that you want to convey, it's very important that you do that. It's very important that you express that. And for me, it's very important that I share my own experience. So from time to time, as I do solo shows here on Decide to Transform, I'm going to get deep into some of the nitty gritty and my own process and things I've done wrong that didn't work. And also, just as importantly, how I came out of that. All right, very important. I'll talk about all of that today because we've got a whole hour. That's what's on tap, and feel welcome to sit back, relax, and you can laugh if you want because I'll be laughing at myself some of the time. Okay, I chose the title out of my head for a couple of reasons. Because in common parlance, we think that if somebody's crazy or if they're acting ridiculous, that they're out of their head. If people make certain decisions in life, we could say, hey, they're out of their head. I actually mean something entirely different by out of my head, and that's getting out of my own head. And perhaps you can relate to that. So the story that I'm going to tell is about how I stifled myself for years and years. Stifled myself in my career, stifled myself emotionally, and really stunted my own personal growth in a big way. Did it systematically over a period of years. And I'm going to tell the story about how I came out of that. So by stunting my growth, I don't mean a poverty rags to riches type financial story. That is not what I mean by any of this. What I mean is not standing in my own truth and what impact that had on me, not paying attention to what I knew in my life was my own calling and how that impacted me negatively. Almost entirely negatively, except for the situations that befell me that happened along the way that really happened for me, not to me, because it felt like at the time they always happen to you, but they're there for your own personal growth. And I am going to share what worked for me to get out of this and be the person that I am today. And perhaps you can relate to this. So if you are going through any kind of transition, and you're experiencing the pain of that, the frustration, possibly the depression. And if you can relate to this, if you're going through this now, or if you've ever been through a situation where you feel like there's just something more out there for you and you're missing what you're really supposed to do. I don't mean just in work, in life in general. If you're feeling like you're missing what you're really supposed to do, I want to invite you to stay tuned today. So, this is all about when we as human beings do not listen to our inner calling. And in my own experience, this went way back to conditioning, to habitual conditioning, and we all get it. We get it from society, we get it from our family, especially from our family. Our nuclear family, our extended family. We get it from our friends when we go off to school as kids. We get it from our teachers, from our peers. So we're always absorbing information. I like to say that we're always teaching. The converse of that is also true. We're always learning. We're always learning from each other. And typically I refer to this in the sense that we're vibrational beings, and what you're putting out there is what you're teaching the world. And what this really is just the truth of our experience. So when somebody's not standing in their truth, what are you teaching? Well, you're teaching that that's the way to be. And whatever you're showing up as, that's what you're telling people this is the way to be. I think about the messages that we're conveying. So the societal expectations on me could have varied. I grew up in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I had parents and grandparents and a family that valued and put a lot of emphasis on formal education. For that, I'm eternally grateful. I've had a very, very good education, formal education throughout my life, and I've benefited tremendously from it. I've had fantastic teachers and mentors, coaches, and professors that have really helped shape who I am. I'm grateful for it. Where that had a dark side was in the expectations that were placed upon me as a kid. I am one of those kids that loved school. I still love school. I love learning to this day. I'm an avid reader. I love to seek information and get creative with that information. And I always enjoyed the structure of school. Of course, not all of my peers did, but I always did my homework and I always did well. So I found that in my family, anyway, that led to a higher amount of pressure. A higher amount of pressure not only to excel, but also to make certain future decisions in life. Now, in middle school and high school, this was pressure to perform, pressure to show up a certain way, pressure to conform to certain norms. And in my family, that was, what do you do for a living? I mean, that was the definition. That was the message that I got, along with plenty of great love along the way. Yes, of course. And I grew up in New Mexico, so this was with a lot of really, really good red and green chili, a lot of enchiladas. So among that was a steady diet of inculcation. And that's the word, inculcation. Systemic drip, drip, drip. This is what you will do because this is what successful, honorable human beings do. And in my family, that had everything to do with career status, as in what you do for a living. And there were really three major categories that got bombarded. I was bombarded with these as a kid. They just kept dripping, dripping, dripping. And this was many people, not just my mother nor my grandparents, but a lot of people. And the categories are, well, it's noble and honorable to be a doctor. Okay. It's normal and honorable and expected to be a doctor, a lawyer, or a politician, even. Now, I know some of you are involved in politics on different levels. Perhaps you've run for elected office in the past, wherever you're from. I can't imagine in my own mind, I cannot imagine a worse career choice for me personally than having to hold elected office and to be a doctor. I don't think so. That does not work for me. You don't want me anywhere near your injured body parts with a scalpel. I promise you that. I promise you that when I go to carve a ham or a Thanksgiving turkey, I prefer to let other people take a stab at that, so to speak, because the carcass looks mutilated if I do that. That's always been the case. It's just that hasn't been my way of operating in the world. So I'm not a surgeon. My dad is. I'm not. Now, for me, that really left the arena of law, and I prefer to work with words. I'm an author. Here I am on worldwide radio. I prefer to work with the verbal realm, words, and helping people in professional life through words. And they're very powerful to me. So given the three options of doctor, lawyer, politician, it was drilled into me and drilled into me and drilled into me. And I found myself after college, I went away to school and had a great time through some epic parties, but also graduated with honors because I was always that student. Okay. So nothing special about that because I wasn't living my own life. I found myself applying for law school, getting accepted, and going off to graduate school and not having really a very defined sense of why. I was 23 years old. I'm now 48. And if you would have asked me back then, at age 23, why are you doing this? I would have had to tell you I don't know. In truth, I really don't know. I didn't feel like going off and studying to become an attorney was my calling. And I knew that at the time, as we all instinctively deep down know what our calling is. And if you really don't know, then what I invite you to do is to go deep and ask whoever you turn to for spiritual guidance, if it's God, the Holy Spirit, the universe, whatever you call your higher self, ask that. Ask yourself for guidance. And you will get an answer if you continue to ask. And if you don't know, that's what I recommend. I knew, and I didn't do anything about it. Instead, I packed up all my belongings and moved up to Portland, Oregon to go to law school. Why? I didn't really know. I just felt that it was expected of me. So if you can relate to doing things that you think are expected of you and that you know are not in your calling, I want to invite you to stick around, and I'm going to share how all of this impacted me in my life. We'll take a quick commercial break here, and I'll be back continuing the story of my own road to spiritual recovery. I'm calling it Out of My Head, because I was in it and I was out of it. Both. We'll be right back, guys. Stick around.
Connecting you with the best of the conscious minds in the world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
OMTimes magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. Connect at omtimes.com. OMTimes, creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Hi, I'm Tomas Garza, author of Decide and host of Decide to Transform on OMTimes Radio. I want to ask you, if you want something in life, have you decided on it? If not, you'll listen to a limiting story about yourself. You will say you can't, you're too old, too young, etc. Decide to transform in life. Learn what you can choose to believe instead of your limiting stories. Decide. Available now in paperback and ebook.
Did you know that you have the power to change anything in your life? Did you know you can do so even with the things that you've already decided are impossible to change? Come join me, Venus Castleberg, on Outside the Impossible as I interview people from around the globe that have literally changed the things they thought were impossible to change just by using the amazing tools of Access Consciousness. Now airing Wednesdays 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. Do you dare to believe that anything really is possible?
A social distancing tip.
Putting distance between yourself and others is critical to slowing the spread of coronavirus. So here are ways to stay in contact, without the physical contact part. Call, send a text, set up a video conference, post on social media, dedicate a song on the radio. If you have symptoms of fever, dry cough, and shortness of breath, call your healthcare provider before going to their office. For more info, visit coronavirus.gov.
Let's all do our part, because we're all #alone together. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Welcome back to Decide to Transform here on OMTimes Radio. I'm your host, Tomas Garza, and you're listening to a special personal expose this week called Out of My Head, A Stubborn Person's Road to Spiritual Recovery. Now, before I continue with my story, before the break, I was talking about some of the general premises of what I mean by getting out of my head and more into my intuition, my gut, my heart. And it's about honoring our true calling. It's about choosing to hear a voice that keeps talking to us if we're not involved in our lives, in career, in a relationship, in any arena, really. If we're not doing what we know in our heart of hearts we're supposed to be here doing, then we will experience frustration. We will experience pain and a gnawing sense of deep dissatisfaction. Now, I happened to be a stubborn young man when I was younger, and well, you could say I'm still stubborn from time to time, but hey, we all have our things that we have to work on, of course. Even people that are involved in the spiritual community. That's why I figured this is so important, and it's important for us to present our own humanity, because people that are spiritual teachers have all had a journey to go through. They have had moments where they made lots of mistakes, and they have had decades, in a lot of our cases, where we made constant and consistent mistakes and a pattern. And I'm in that ballpark, without a doubt. I am certainly squarely within that category. And I'm talking about that today. I'll talk about it some more next week. But the overall feeling that I'm talking about here, and if you can relate to this, is not being present for your own life. When I found myself headed off to law school as a 23-year-old, I had a profound feeling of being on autopilot. And that was not necessarily a good thing. I just felt like this was what I had to do, and this was all based on societal expectations. In particular, expectations within my own family for what was considered worthy of me as a young adult who liked to study and did well in school. Okay, that doesn't qualify me for any gold stars or special awards, because I know a number of you listening did well in school, and maybe you're students right now and you're doing well in school. And speaking of students, I want to, before I continue, give a special shout out to my son Mateo, who is 17. Mateo, happy birthday today. You'll listen to this later because I know you're doing online school right now. So let's hope that you're online on school and you're 17. I'm so proud of you. Happy birthday. And guys, if you have teenagers, it's very crazy when your kids hit certain ages. And 17, well, yeah, I remember when he was 2, and we remember when all our kids were 2 and very little. So it's just amazing the growth that takes place, the rapid growth that takes place in a short period of time. So let's go back to the year 1995, which is when I was 23 years old and attending law school. Why? I don't have any idea. I have no idea. And I know now, several years later, why I attended, and it had nothing to do with school. But that's a whole different part of this story. I went because I felt like it was what I needed and had to do, based on societal expectations, based on expectations within my own family. And what I found when I arrived was that I made a number of friends who are still friends of mine today. In fact, some of you may be tuning into this broadcast today. met some amazing people and had some amazing experiences, because that's always possible and always something we should look for, no matter what walk of life we're in or where we find ourselves. There are always friendly people, and you could make lifelong friends wherever you go. What troubled me was the overall demeanor and the overall vibration of law school. If you're an attorney, I'm sure you can relate to this. A number of my friends are practicing attorneys. So what I'm talking about here is my own point of view. This was not right for me. And what did not resonate for me as a human being was the word versus. The adversarial system in the United States, we have an adversarial us versus them, me versus you legal system. And I know that's true of a number of other countries in the world. Everyone's system is a little bit different with different tweaks and adjustments. But for me, this was all someone doing battle, ritualized battle with somebody in a court of law. And people were hyper competitive. People were hyper competitive, and they really, really behaved poorly. These otherwise fun people that I would hang out with on a Friday night behaved really poorly and postured themselves as though they were under constant attack. And well, in their minds, they were under constant attack from professors that would make you look ridiculous if you weren't 100% prepared and articulate in class, from their peers. And all of this was perceived reality as I saw it. It was very difficult for me to operate in this sphere of influence. So what did I do? I kept my head down and I kept studying. I found, obviously, some of the situations utterly untenable, and I found a lot of it interesting, and that's what I leaned on. There was just enough interest for me in the study and the practice of law to put my head down and plow through all the way to graduation, which I did, and I'm happy I did that. But at the time, it was suffering. It was hellish. And I found myself thinking, what the hell am I doing here? I'm reading 200 pages worth of appellate court opinions. It all begins to look the same after a while. And I've spoken with, and I know a number of lawyers and practicing attorneys these days who don't read much at all because they read all day long. And if you're not a litigator, then you read a lot of things, you read a lot of contracts. And it's a lot of reading of things that you don't want to read. And for me, it was a deadening environment, from the competition to just the setup of the system in general. It was not spiritually nurturing to me in any way, and especially so because I knew that that was what I was interested in: the spiritual, the personal growth, the transformation, meditation, all of that. Because I already had a practice of meditation that helped me tremendously, yet I was so bogged down in the day-to-day details of just getting by that really didn't play as prominent a role in my life as it needed to. It didn't play as prominent a role in my life as it could have and should have, and I always felt that I was falling short. I just knew that, yes, here I was doing something that society considers honorable, but it's not for me. And I had some friends that quit right off the bat. They quit after the first couple of weeks thinking, oh no, I can't do this. And to me, it was drilled into me, don't quit. And it wound up being something that has served me. But at the time, there was a lot of suffering involved because rather than do what they did, I put my head down and kept studying and kept going and going. So toward the end of all of this, I made a decision at the completion of school that was not very popular among my family members. As you might very well imagine, knowing my background a little bit more from this show, I decided that I was not going to be a happy human being practicing conventional law. Therefore, I chose not to sit for the bar exam. Now, the way this works is graduating from law school does not make you an attorney. In the United States, that's not the way it works. One has to then apply for and sit for a comprehensive, big-time comprehensive examination called the bar exam that's administered by individual states. That very, very difficult test that people would take months at a time to study for, just to study for, with very low pass rates, gets lower all the time as they try to restrict the number of practicing attorneys in every state, and insanity to me. So I chose not to do that, and it was wildly unpopular among my peers who didn't understand why I had just spent 3 years plus on law school not to sit for the bar exam. That was not a popular decision among a lot of circles, but it was one of the best decisions that I personally ever made. So that's one of the things that I did. And this is one of the takeaways for you if you find yourself right now in a place where you know there's something more out there for you, and you're headed down a path that you know is not going to be happy for you and is going to bring you suffering. This is one thing that you can absolutely most certainly do, is have the courage to make an unpopular decision and break that flow. It's hard to do. It was hard for me to do that. It was easy for me to do that because it was what my soul and my spirit was calling for me to do, begging, really, more like, screaming. And I did that, and it started me off on a different trajectory. I know that I would have been miserable in conventional law, so I could have easily probably passed the bar exam, gotten sworn in as a practicing attorney, and lived that life. Okay, so what? Really, so what? For me, that was not my path. So making a very, very difficult yet unpopular decision and having the courage to risk that is one way that we can all break the chains. And that started, this was 1998 for me. So this was 22 years ago. Where I went from there was not exactly that helpful for me psychologically and emotionally, because rather than practice law, I chose a related career, that of alternative dispute resolution, and I took a career as a mediator, and most of this was in private practice. Save a couple of years where I worked for a community program, I spent most of my time in alternative dispute resolution in private practice as a high-level child custody and parenting time mediator. High stakes, court-ordered cases, and this means all of the negativity that you might imagine and more. A lot more. Because what we have is a situation where the court orders people to participate in mediation to attempt to resolve their disputes. These disputes had to do with children, some of them very young, some of them teenagers, but this was in the state of Oregon. And at the time, this is still the case, by the way, that if people seek a divorce or they have a separation, a legal separation, they don't have to be married. If there are minor children involved, then they are required to come up with a document called a parenting plan, which is the custody and parenting time arrangement for the minor kids. And other things are included in there, sometimes finances, sometimes other things, possession, property, that sort of thing. But it's mostly about the kids, and as you can imagine, things get heated. We have two grieving parents thrust into a room with a third-party mediator to attempt to work through their numerous disagreements. In fact, the disagreements are so pronounced that they're getting a divorce. So you can imagine basking in that negativity. And I did this for close to 13 years. 13. It's a long time. It's a long time to show up in an office 4 to 5 hours, sometimes 6 hours in a day, and work with grieving people. Because we all know, if you've been through a divorce, you would know. Were you at your best when you were going through that process? I doubt it. It's really, really hard to be at your best when your entire life is in that kind of flux. So I know that a number of my clients were very good people. They are very good people, but thrust into a difficult situation with a lot of pressure on them and a lot of uncertainty, they didn't behave well. So I had people yelling at each other, yelling at me. Why? Well, it's psychological projection. And we can take a look back, and from a distance, we can say, hey, yes, this person is projecting. Okay, they're lashing out because they themselves are afraid and they can't handle being afraid. So they're lashing out and snapping at anyone that moves. And as the mediator, I was getting paid money, good money, mind you, but I was still there receiving that, basking in F-bomb laced tirades, things that I am absolutely not going to repeat here on the radio. And I can share some of the nasty situations that I saw, because of course I won't mention any names, and this is all something that I really didn't want to hear about most of the time. And most of the time, it was just the situation. And I chose that. Why? Because I wasn't 100% of the way listening to my calling. Okay, so I didn't sit for the bar exam. That's an unpopular decision that helped me tremendously. However, I was still in a profound place of stuckness. Profound. And I'll tell you more about how I got out of that on the other side of this commercial break. So we're going to take that break right now. When I come back, I'll talk about how I really started to answer my own calling. We'll take a quick break here. You're listening to Decide to Transform on OMTimes Radio.
Free your mind with OMTimes Radio, IOM FM.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free, ascendinghearts.com.
Hi, I'm Tomas Garza, host of Decide to Transform on OMTimes Radio. Thank you for listening. You know, there's only so much we can cover on a 1-hour show. If you'd like to hear further from me, I happily offer personalized teachings. Get your very own voice recording or book a one-on-one consultation. Ask a burning question and gain clarity on achieving massive transformation in your life. Details available on my website, tomasgarza.com.
My name is Victor Furman. Some call me the Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which they meet. Join me Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio, and we'll explore these topics and so much more on Destination Unlimited.
I'm Fidel Nsombo. I was born in a city called Bukavu in the Congo. We were a loving family, and then, boom, everything that I had disappeared in a single day. People think that when you are a refugee and they resettle you to America and all your problems are done. They don't understand that that's the beginning of everything. I was not born a refugee. I was made one.
It's time we welcome refugee families with open arms. Learn more at embracerefugees.org, brought to you by the Ad Council.
Welcome back to Decide to Transform. I'm your host, Tomas Garza, and you are listening to a show, a very personal show called Out of My Head, A Stubborn Person's Road to Spiritual Recovery. And yes, I am that stubborn person who didn't listen to divine guidance for years. Years and years and years and years and years to my own detriment. And I am in the middle of telling you how I got out of this. One of the ways that I took advantage of and used to get out of a situation of my own doing was to make an unpopular decision that felt right to me. In my case, it was refusal to sit for the bar exam back in 1998 when I graduated law school. Okay, for you, it could be something completely different. And whatever it is, I'm inspired by my tea bag right here. I'm inspired by many things. And I'm drinking a cup of tea right now live. And the tea bag from Yogi Tea reads, "In every moment of life, you should be what you ought to be." I'll reread that. In every moment of life, you should be what you ought to be. In other words, you should listen to your calling. We all should listen to our own calling. So how am I qualified to say this? Well, I had to learn it the hard way. Everything that I teach is based on a series of experiences and things that did not work out for me earlier in this lifetime. That's for sure. Now, anyone I would submit that you connect with, that you feel is authentically sharing their truth, they've had a long and sometimes winding road, full of potholes, full of detours, and really taking the wrong turn. There's a story behind all of it, and that's my aim this week on the show. It's going to be my aim next week on the show, is to take you through some of my own process in hopes that something here that I say today will resonate with you, and ideally that it will inspire you to take action. It will inspire you to make a decision to make some real change in your life. And perhaps you've spent the last 6 weeks or so during this worldwide shutdown and quarantine, whatever your place of residence calls the stay-at-home order. Whatever it is and whatever it looks like, perhaps you've been doing a lot of thinking on this level. And I hope that you have. So, after law school, I became involved in mediation at a very, very high stakes level in the family arena, child custody, parenting time. I saw some people behaving really badly. All right. And there are so many things that I saw and heard that are inappropriate, absolutely inappropriate in my estimation to mention here on the air, even without mentioning specific names, which of course I would never do. These were all high-level confidential pieces of discussion. But I've seen parents react badly. And I have seen them damage property, that I have seen them burn belongings, burn cars. I have seen them tie up people and, to a tree, to a chair. I have seen people abuse pets. All of these things are things that I've reported, of course, because I was under a duty to report all of this once I heard about it. And I've seen people acting so badly and poorly under the influence of anger and frustration and pain and rage, that there's a lesson in all of this, that as human beings, don't think for a moment that any one of us is above this. We're not. Every moment of every day, we have a choice. Do we choose love or do we choose fear? If we choose fear, we could find ourselves in a really nasty situation. Now, perhaps you experience intense anger in your life. Perhaps you experience intense frustration. Perhaps you have a desire to hurt yourself. Do you? Perhaps you have a desire to hurt others, to damage property, to lash out. And what I want to say is everyone has been in situations where you felt deeply frustrated. I have. That's why I'm on the air today, broadcasting live worldwide about some of the things that I have done wrong. I did not listen to myself and wound up for the better part of 2 decades involved in a career path that led me down the road to depression. I felt all the time that this was just normal. This was just life. Life is hard. Life is tough. Do any of you receive that message all the time? I received it all the time from society, from my family. Yeah, life is painful. Life is hard. It's a struggle, a word that I really dislike, struggle. Because if there's a struggle going on in life, really on some level, we're choosing to make that a struggle. We could choose to get out of that. Even if you can only make that choice right now, and that's all you can do, that's something, and that's a start. So I just thought that this was the way it was. Life was like this. Mediation is like this, and well, this is my lot, I found myself thinking. And then I found myself thinking, no, it doesn't have to be this way. I can quit. So I formulated that wish, yet the money kept coming in. The clients kept coming in. I mean, imagine this was all ordered by the court. So what happens? People keep suing each other, don't they? Especially for divorce or separation. If people are unhappy, then of course they're going to file paperwork to end their marriages, to end their civil unions, their relationships. And they're going to end up in a mediator's office if there are minor children involved and there's a dispute. That's going to happen. And that represented a stream of income that I was afraid to lose. So what did it take for me to get out of that? Well, number one, I formulated the wish to quit and drafted resignation letters. Perhaps you're in the same situation, or you have been in the past where you wanted to get out of a soul-sucking dead-end job. I think a lot of us can relate to that. If you are in that situation now, have you typed up a resignation letter and have you delivered it? I never delivered them. Why? Because the money kept coming in and there was just a part of me that thought, okay, this is the way it's supposed to be. That I wasn't listening to my calling to do something else. So what happened was the universe really made a decision for me. And it was hard. It was like a smack in the face. And it was literally a smack because on the 3rd of December, 2013, what it took for me to get out of mediation was to get T-boned at 55 miles an hour, major car accident, and wake up in the hospital. Now, of course, I was so drugged up after a 6-hour surgery to repair a badly fractured acetabulum, that is the bone that surrounds the hip joint. That happened during the accident, and I had to learn to walk again, and I was so drugged up on hardcore narcotic pain medication that I could not serve my clients. Therefore, I took the opportunity to quit. That's what it took for me, is a car accident and hospitalization, which is a story unto itself. And in fact, I do tell this story on Decide to Transform on my very second show from December 3rd of 2019. If you want to, and you're curious about that experience, feel free to go back into the archives. The show date is December 3rd, 2019. It's my second show here on OMTimes Radio, second ever, and it's all about that experience. But that is what it took for me, is something nearly tragic because I nearly died, woke up in the hospital, and there was depression that inevitably followed that, and I just wasn't listening. I wasn't listening to myself. I was all completely in my head and ignored my calling, which was go deeper into your spirituality. Go deeper into your spirituality. Teach. It took time for me to do that. So there are several ways that I want to go through for how I got out of my head, because that's the title of the show. And this is something that may seem to you, looking at me from afar, as something that was easy for me. Yes, It's much easier now than it was back then for me to listen to my intuition and act accordingly. Yes, it flows. It's much more uninterrupted, I should say, and it's louder and clearer than it's ever been. But that was not always the case. It was always persistent, because if you're meant to be doing something else, you will be directed to that. Sometimes, if you're stubborn, like me, it's going to take something traumatic. It could be a car accident, and I hope it's not for you. But if it is, if it's something jarring, like a divorce, like getting fired from a job that you know is not good for you, if it's something that appears traumatic, I want to invite you to consider the blessings behind that, because it's a very well used, in fact, it's a cliched phrase, blessing in disguise. Well, everything that's happening to us, I firmly believe this, everything that's happening in life is happening for our benefit. There's an opportunity in every moment for us to choose differently. There is an opportunity for us to choose love over fear. That is the choice that we're looking at in every moment of every day. Every time, every moment, we actually have another opportunity. It's a beautiful thing, but of course we don't see it that way when we're swept away in all of this. So it might take something jarring for you to transform and to make the decision to change. For me, I delved deeper into spirituality, particularly the spiritual text, A Course in Miracles, which to me works so well. If you're familiar with that, then you'll know what I mean here. It combines Eastern philosophy and Western philosophy in a very universal way. Though when I mention spirituality here on the show, it's always universal without reference to any particular spiritual tradition or background, unless I specifically quote from Buddhism or from Christianity or from a Hindu document, something like that, or A Course in Miracles. It's all universal because we're all having an experience of having the opportunity to choose. Spirituality to me is 100% universal. It is universal. And leaning into that was one of the ways that I was able to get out of my own head. Now, I went on antidepressants, I'll share. I did in 2014 realize, hey, I need some help with this. No shame in that, by the way, if you're considering it. I could have done that years ago, and I would have been living a different life a lot sooner. So I did that for a couple years, went on, felt better. And I did do that in addition to meditation. So no shame in that. Please don't feel alarmed if you're contemplating that. You know, it might be something that will really, really help you. And I did a total career 180 as well. Yeah, it's a total career 180 to go back to something that you know you're meant to do. And today it's being an author, it's a meditation instructor, it's being a coach and a healer, it is being a podcast producer and a podcast host. There are so many ways to get a message out and to serve people as an example of choosing love, to step up. And for me, this is stepping up and leading. And I hope that you take something that applies to you from this, especially if you are in a position where you know that your calling is suggesting you do something else and you have not yet heeded that. All right, if you've done this in the past, you can relate to it. And patience for yourself is really, really important. It doesn't mean inaction. Patience does not mean inaction. What I mean by that is give yourself some grace and take some deep breaths, quite literally. And when you do, you'll find that you're more able to fully listen to divine guidance. I did all these things because I was too in my head, and happily, I got out of it. And that's the goal for all of us, is to get more into our hearts, to get more into our gut, and tap into that calling, because we all have a gift. We're here for a reason. We're here to reach certain people that only you, by the way, can really reach. Some people in this world obviously have a very broad impact, but I want to encourage you to do your own work, because there are people out there that will resonate best with you and your message. So please, for yourself and for everyone else around you, for the entire world, please don't hesitate to go deep and do the work. And let me know as well how I can help you. My email address is tomas@tomasgarza.com. I love to take questions and feedback from you about the show. Also, if you're interested in being a guest teacher here on Decide to Transform, or on my colleague's show, Lisa Berry's show, Light on Living, here on OMTimes Radio, please let me know. Send me an email, connect with me on Facebook. I hope this is of value to you. I'll be doing more next week of a personal expose about dangerous people. All right, you'll want to tune into that. So have a great week, everybody. Stay safe, stay healthy, wherever you are, and I'll see you soon. Have a great day, everyone.